That one glorious word represents more than just the geography between the Sabine and the Rio Grande. It represents a unique idea and way of life. A life of rugged individualism, proud self-reliance, gritty toughness, and fierce independence. That is what made Texas, and that is what will save her again. Howdy, folks. Sam Houston here. I want to thank you for tuning into the Feed Bandit podcast. Feed Bandit is the Texas first outdoors brand built by rabid Texans, for rabid Texans, and all those who aim to be one someday. We unapologetically promote the ideals that shape our Texas pride and Texas first patriotism through our love of hunting, the outdoors, and the gear and apparel we create. Texas, above all else, preserve the tradition, protect the legacy. Check us out at feedbandit.com. And to repeat that great rallying cry from a former colleague of mine, liberty or death. Now, enough of my talking. Here are a couple of bandits that love Texas as much as I do. Enjoy.
Well, howdy, friend. Welcome back to the Feed Bandit podcast. Jimmy back with you. And on this one, we're going to continue our series on Whitetail Strategies. Now, I know, and on many parts of the state, or most, or everywhere, I should say, the latest, South Zone goes till the 19th. And in the North Zone, youth only goes the 6th to the 19th. South Zone, youth only, 6th to the 19th. Although, let's say the general season in the South Zone goes till January 19th. Muzzleloader is January 6th to the 19th. And there is a special late zone in the North, January 6th to the 19th, and in the South, January 20th to February 2nd. So let's see, your special late season. In counties with a special late season, harvest is restricted to antlerless and unbranched antlered deer, a buck with at least one antler that has no more than 1 point. A point is a projection that extends at least 1 inch from the edge of the main beam or other time. The tip of the main beam is also a point. So I read that to say spikes, right? A buck with at least one antler that has no more than 1 point. So if it has two antlers, 1 point, so that's 2 points, but on each antler, right? So those special late seasons, you can get out there and do some damage. Just depends on where you are. You just look it up at Texas Parks Wildlife, texaspwd.texas.gov regulations. So those special late seasons, you can take advantage if you weren't able to find time during the holiday season to get out there and get you fill your freezer up. There's still a chance. So pay attention to that. But in the meantime, before I jump into the Whitetail Strategies, continuing that, what I was going to say was, we're reaching the end of the whitetail season here. However, that doesn't mean that our study of our great animal, the whitetail deer, has to come necessarily to an end. Now's the time to actually do a lot of the studying. We mentioned, or Corn Bandit mentioned on one of the previous podcasts about things to do in the off season. Now, one of those is definitely studying up on the animals that you're going to be hunting prior to the season that you get out there and go after them. So we'll continue this study of Whitetail Strategies, but first, a little Texas history. So this is January, but there are a couple things that we missed or glanced over that as time progresses, we'll get into more and more detail, but I wanted to throw them out there as interesting factids about what happened in December back in the day in Texas. So in 1832, in December of 1832, so 4 years before the war declaration and independence of Texas from Mexico, San Antonio presented grievances to the Mexican state legislature. So in December of 1832, San Antonio became the first Texas town to present a list of grievances to the legislature of Coahuila in Texas. The document, known as the Bexar Remonstrance, or Bexar Remonstrance, was signed by Jose Angel Navarro, who was the alcalde of San Antonio. It sought a repeal of that part of the law of April 6, 1830, banning immigration from the United States. It also sought the separation of Texas from Coahuila. So we can see the seeds of rebellion being were already fomenting as early as 1832. So it only took it's amazing what can change in 4 years. It went from 1832, where there was a law banning immigration from the United States, to 1836, when Texas essentially gained its independence by a bunch of immigrants from the United States coming here and fighting old Santa Anna and his undefeatable army. And in that same month of December 1845, but in 1845, excuse me. So in the same month, in 1845, however, so 13 years later, the U.S. Congress approved the annexation of Texas. So look how much things have changed from there a law being on the books in Mexico in 1832 banning immigration from the United States. And then just 13 years later, the U.S. Congress approved the annexation of Texas. We can debate whether or not that in the long run was actually a good thing or a smart move by Texas. It was inevitable, in my opinion, especially how weak Texas was, I think, at the time. Although, if all effort was devoted towards building up Texas and her defenses rather than lobbying to just be annexed to the United States in order to take advantage of the United States defenses, then perhaps, history could have gone a different way. I have several ideas for books in my mind, and one of them would have been that what happened if Texas did not join the United States. Could be an interesting alternate history. But in December of 1845, the United States Congress voted to annex Texas. Statehood was first proposed in 1837, but was rejected by President Martin Van Buren. Constitutional scruples and fear of war with Mexico were the reasons given for the rejection. But anti-slavery sentiment in the United States undoubtedly influenced Van Buren and continued to be the chief obstacle to annexation. Under President James Polk, the United States Congress passed the annexation resolution in February 1845. Texas President Anson Jones called the Texas Congress into session on June 16, 1845, and a convention of elected delegates met on the 4th of July. Both the Texas Congress and the convention voted for annexation, and a constitution was drawn up. The document was ratified by popular vote in October 1845 and accepted by the United States Congress on December 29, 1845. On February 19, 1846, President Jones of the Republic of Texas handed over control of the new state government to Governor James Pinckney Henderson. So that act, one act, or multiple acts, but the whole annexation of Texas to the United States undoubtedly changed the course in the history of the U.S., allowed it to become the American empire that it is today. I would argue the empire is not a good thing. And who knows what would have happened. Maybe eventually Texas would have just, if the Texicans at the time did not agree to annexation, maybe eventually the U.S. would have just invaded Texas and taken her over on her own. That may have happened. We'll never know. But the United States has benefited greatly from the bounty that is the natural resources in Texas, and I would say the people of Texas has benefited from the people of Texas, who are unique amongst citizens in this country. I think you dear listener, if you are here and a Texan, you would agree with that. If you're outside of Texas, You probably know some Texans and would also agree with that sentiment. So here we are, 2025, Texas, 180 years ago, Texas became part of the United States. Will it be here as part of the United States in another 20 years or for 200 years? I don't know. I kind of doubt it. I think a lot will change in the next 20 years. As things are now, I advocate for Texas leaving and governing herself fully, the second Republic of Texas. But we shall see what will happen in the next 20 years. Us over here at Feed Bandit will do what it takes to fight for Texas. And we hope you, dear listener, will do the same. So with that, let's get on to Whitetail Strategies. All right. Continuing in our series, Whitetail Strategies, we're going to start Chapter 9, The Smell of Success. Scent and whitetails go hand in hand. Without question, the whitetail's sense of smell is its key to survival and your key to hunting success. Disregards a deer's ability to scent man, predator, a food source, or a mate, and you begin your hunting behind the proverbial 8-ball. No other sense in the whitetail survival arsenal is more relied on or more effective than its sense of smell. As mentioned in Chapter 5, Wind and Whitetails, you must keep wind direction uppermost in your mind. Hunting with the wind in your favor is critical to consistent success, whether you use scents or not. In addition, it's critical to keep your body as clean as possible and your equipment and clothing free of odors. To help reduce human and foreign odors, you can use a variety of commercially made attracting, masking, and food scents in addition to non-scented soaps. Some experts believe that scents are just hype and swear they are not effective. Others are more practical in their opinion about commercially made scent. And then there are the zealous ones who make outrageous claims about the effectiveness of commercially made deer scents. My view on scents is more realistic and is based solely on common sense. Forgive the pun. I believe using commercially made scents to mask human odor or to attract a buck requires a lot of common sense. I can guarantee you, no matter what type of scent you use, you will have more success using it sparingly than by following the directions that recommend using large doses of scent throughout the woods. Too much natural deer scent, doe estrus, buck urine, tarsal, interdigital, etc., will spook a buck almost as quickly as human odor. However, I've found that using commercially made scent wisely has helped my deer hunting and not hindered it. Remember this saying for the rest of your deer hunting days. Bust a buck's nose and you've busted the buck. Please read that sentence again. Okay, I will. Bust a buck's nose and you've busted the buck. Learning how to fool a buck's nose is the key to your deer hunting success. All this means is if you block or impede a buck's ability to pick up your human odor, the battle is better than halfway won. In addition, if you can fool him into believing there is a hot doe or preferred food source nearby, you will increase your chances of seeing and shooting more bucks. In this chapter, I'll talk about how to use glandular scents from deer, commercially made, attracting, and food scents, and how to substantially reduce human odor when hunting. If you'd like to have the most exciting and challenging deer season you've had in a long time, read this chapter carefully. First, let's look at how you can capitalize on attracting and fooling bucks by using scents from deer glands. Deer glandular scents. You can create a variety of responses from deer by using or avoiding different gland scents. In creating these responses, you can attract or stir deer even when other hunters are having a hard time seeing game. Whitetail deer have several external glands that play a significant part in their communication and behavior. These glands include the tarsal, interdigital, metatarsal, orbital, forehead, and preorbital. Pheromones created by these glands are received and interpreted by deer. These olfactory messages act to alarm, calm, attract, frighten, identify, and even help in establishing a deer's rank within the herd. Recently, however, More is being written about other newly researched glands. One such researcher is Dr. Carl Miller at the University of Georgia, a leading expert on the physiology of whitetails. The nasal gland is found inside the nostrils of a deer's nose. The gland consists of two almond-shaped organs that scientists are not sure whether it produces a scent or only lubricates the lining of the nose. They have speculated, however, that it does play a role in marking overhead branches when making a scrape. Another recently discovered gland is the preputial gland. That's a mouthful for someone who has trouble talking. Located on the inside of the buck's penile sheath. Research so far suggests that this gland doesn't play a significant role regarding the rutting odor of a buck during the breeding season. According to Dr. Miller and other leading deer experts, so far we know that deer have 7 different glandular regions. How many more will we find? Who knows? But I think it's a safe bet that we'll find more. The forehead gland is comprised of sebaceous and apricine hairs. During the rut, these hairs swell up and produce a scent that the buck deposits on trees as he is rubbing. Both bucks and does use this gland as a scent marker. In the 10 years I have videotaped deer, I have taped dozens of bucks rubbing their antlers on trees. To the buck, they all exhibited the same behavior while rubbing. First, they approach the tree or sapling, smell it, and then begin to vigorously rub their antlers against the trunk. After rubbing their antlers up and down several times, they pause, step back, smell the trunk, and then lick it. Then, if the mood strikes them, they repeat the process over again. Obviously, this behavior is not a random act, but rather a specific behavioral routine bucks seem to stick to when making a rub. The rubbed area often contains an odor for days. Tarsal. The tarsal gland, a true external gland, is on the inside of the hind legs of all deer. This gland turns almost black as bucks continually urinate on it throughout the rut. Deer use tarsal gland pheromones, which are mostly made up of lactones, several ways, as a visual and olfactory signal of a mature buck, as an alarm, to identify individual deer, and in mature deer, it becomes involved with breeding behavior during the rut. When excited, the hairs on the tarsal gland stand erect and can be seen for quite a distance by other deer. All deer urinate on their tarsal glands, and this contributes to their pungent odor. To obtain optimum response from tarsal scent during the rut, put several drops of commercially made scent in a drip boot dispenser, rag, or pad, and hang it from a branch close by. Its scent will permeate the area and act as an attracting or agitating smell. Don't place it in your clothing. You don't want the deer's attention to be zeroing in on you. Instead, focus his attention or aggression 10 to 20 yards from you. More about why I recommend this at the end of the chapter. Although the scent from tarsal glands of harvested does attracts bucks, many hunters have had equal success attracting bucks with commercially made tarsal scent. Often this scent lures in a belligerent buck who thinks another buck is working his area. At times, not always, the odor of tarsal agitates bucks so much they respond within a short period of time after putting out the scent. When creating a mock scrape or hunting over a natural scrape, I use tarsal scent. I also use it when I'm hunting with deer decoys. Placing a few drops on the inside of a buck's decoy's legs adds to the flavor of realism. Remember the key phrase of this book. Always try to create the entire illusion. In addition, I use tarsal with estrus scents when I'm hunting during the rut. Several years ago, my wife Kate began using tarsal scent. That year, she placed several drops of tarsal in a drip dispenser and on rags tied around her thighs. She left a tarsal scent trail on the ground and on foliage a few feet off the ground. Her stand was a few hundred yards from where she began laying down the scent trail. About 30 minutes after settling into her stand, she saw several young bucks walking up the tarsal scent trail she left. In one instance, 2 bucks were approaching one behind the other. Once the bucks reached the end of the scent mark trail, they became confused and belligerent. These 2 small bucks waited at the base of Kate's tree stand for 20 minutes. Deciding to pass up the small bucks, she watched them spar with each other before they walked away. Tarsal is a pungent odor. Use it only during the peak rut and only sparingly. Using tarsal at the wrong time of year and too much of it will be ineffective. The key to all these glandular scents is that they try to use them in conjunction with the times of year that deer are accustomed to naturally associating their smells in the woods. Interdigital. The interdigital gland is located between the deer's hooves. It's a yellow, waxy substance that emits a secretion with an offensive, potent odor. Interdigital scent is like a human fingerprint, individual to each deer. Although I don't know of documented evidence suggesting the interdigital odor from the bucks and does is different, I would speculate the interdigital scent from mature bucks and does is more potent than the scent from immature deer. Hunters can use interdigital scent two ways. Used sparingly, it acts as an attracting scent. All deer leave minute amounts of interdigital scent as they walk. Other deer follow trails marked with a normal amount of interdigital scent. Use only 1 or 2 drops of a commercially made scent on a boot pad. When you're within 15 yards of your stand, remove the pad, hang it on a bush, and wait for deer to come and investigate the odor. Deer also use interdigital scent as a warning to other deer. When a deer stomps on its hooves, it's warning other deer of danger through sight, sound, and scent. Deer that smell excess interdigital scent often refuse to continue further down the trail. They will mill about nervously for several moments, walk around the scent, or retreat the way they came, while instinctively heeding the pheromone warning left earlier by another deer. Hunters who use interdigital scent incorrectly, in excess of a few drops, that is, will definitely spook rather than attract deer. Here's my favorite way to make deer move out of heavy cover. When I was a guide, I placed clients on known buck escape routes. I moved about 100 yards away, spread excess interdigital scent, about 10 drops, stomped my feet, and blew an alarm distress snort. This imitation of a deer sending out an alarm through both audible and olfactory scent messages sent bucks and does sneaking down the posted escape routes while trying to flee the danger signals their ears and nose were receiving. Of course, you would not want to use this ploy too often or in more than 1 or 2 locations in the woods you are hunting. It would have the tendency to genuinely motivate deer to become reluctant to use the area. To convince you of the potency of this scent, simply spread the toes of the next deer you kill and with the tip of a knife, dig between the toes. Now caution, don't be naive enough to place the knife tip directly up under your nose. You'll regret it for the rest of the day. That sounds like a funny prank to play on your buddies. The odor is so foul it can make you nauseous. I use a commercially made interdigital scent rather than collecting it from dead deer. Preorbital. The preorbital gland is located just below the corner of the eye. Its main function is to serve as a tear duct. However, deer continually rub this gland together with the gland on their forehead, on bushes, branches, and tree limbs, especially during the rut. Biologists speculate deer use this gland to deposit a specific pheromone to mark certain areas and to help identify individual deer to each other. I know an avid bow hunter who regularly removes the preorbital gland, along with the gland from under the forehead, from the hides he capes from deer, preferably bucks. Once he has caped the hide, he turns it inside out and cuts the entire eye section free, including the tear duct, which is the preorbital gland. Then he removes the section of the forehead containing the forehead gland. With rubber surgeon's gloves, he rubs the tear duct and forehead gland on branches that are in shooting lanes around his tree stand. Over the years, he's told me, I've watched deer moving through my area stop and raise their noses trying to locate the odor. They slowly approach a branch I rubbed the scent on and begin to mouth and rub their eyes and foreheads on it. It's often given me the opportunity to shoot at a buck who isn't paying attention to me, or that might have walked past my stand without ever stopping. Excuse me. I don't know of a manufacturer making a synthetic preorbital or forehead gland scent. If you want to try these scents, you'll have to gather them from harvested deer. This is a job, however, which may prove to involve a considerable amount of effort and work. Just an aside, this book was written a while ago, so those scents may be available out there now. After we do this podcast, I'm going to go take a look. The first time I tried these scents was during the 1994 season. I had limited success, which didn't surprise me. Whenever you're using natural scents, there's a period of trial and error in the testing. I probably used too much, although I know enough to use all scents sparingly. I intend to try using these glands again during the 95 season. In any event, so he wrote this in 94, the limited success I had in attracting 2 bucks while using these scents encourages me to continue to use them. Metatarsal. The metatarsal gland is a controversial gland. It is within a white tuft of hair located on the outside hind legs just above the dew claws. Some naturalists and biologists believe the gland is atrophying, getting smaller through evolution because deer no longer need it, and therefore has no real purpose. Others believe the gland emits a pheromone and is used by deer for identification and as a warning signal. In any event, this gland is not well understood. When using metatarsal scent, be ready for anything to happen. You may be fortunate enough to attract deer, or unfortunate and spook game when using metatarsal scent. Some old-timers swear by metatarsal scent. They tie the gland to a boot and drag it through the woods. Many claim they have attracted deer to their stands using this gland and method. For now, the jury is still out on the effectiveness metatarsal scent has while deer hunting. My suggestion coincides with my philosophy about deer hunting. Be innovative. Give metatarsal a try and experiment with it this fall. Over the last dozen years, I've used metatarsal in the way described above. Although both bucks and does walked down a trail where the scent was deposited, they did not seem to follow the scent trail. Interestingly, both bucks and does appear to walk along the trail when I use this scent. However, I remain confused or at least unconvinced that they were attracted by the metatarsal scent. The first time I see a deer walking down a trail of metatarsal with its nose held to the ground is when I will be absolutely convinced of its effectiveness. When using scents, especially gland scents, be careful not to mix conflicting pheromones. For example, don't use excess interdigital with attracting scents. Excess interdigital scent is meant to warn deer of danger, not attract them. You can, however, use 1 or 2 drops of interdigital with an estrus scent, as both are attracting scents. Another caution, if you use gland scents collected from recently harvested deer, be careful not to use too much. The concentration of scent from bagged game is more potent than commercially made scent. Scent glands or even the urine from bladders can be overused and lead to problems. I stick to granular scents made by reliable scent manufacturers. This is important. Each year, a dozen new scent companies hit the market. To become profitable, many newcomers water down their scents or use chemicals that act negatively to deer. To have confidence in the scents you use, stick with scents made by the long-standing manufacturers. Most commercial brand scents provide reliability and a lot less work for you. The most overused deer scent is doe and estrus. Although estrus scent works, do not use this scent throughout the entire deer season. Estrus works best for a few days prior to each peak period of the 3 phases of the rut, and it is most effective when it is used sparingly. I use doe estrus every year. However, I use it with an open mind and a lot of common sense. There isn't a buck in the woods who confuses the estrus scent from a hot doe with a commercially made deer scent. When used correctly, big bucks have come in to investigate an estrus-laden boot pad or scent wick hung near my stand. I think estrus scent works best prior to the actual peak periods of each phase of the rut. In other words, I've had most success using estrus scents before bucks pair up with does. The best periods of success with estrus scent have been October 5th to 10th, November 10th through 15th, and December 10th through the 15th throughout North America. This is the time of the chase when bucks are scurrying all over the woods in search of estrus does. Commercially made estrus scent works best during these periods and not when bucks are matched up with does. One of my favorite sex-attracting scents is made by longtime scent manufacturer Pete Rickard. In case you're wondering, yes, this is an endorsement of the Pete Rickard Scent Company that has been in business for over 60 years, so really almost 100 now. The scent is Love Potion number 9, and I developed the concept and application and field tested Love Potion number 9 for several years before Rickard agreed to include it in his line of scents. Okay, well, if that's still available out there, might be worth looking into. Love Potion number 9 is an interesting combination of scents with a realistic application. It is specifically mixed to combine the natural pheromones of a submissive buck with the urine of a mature doe and estrus. Love Potion number 9 was formulated to create the illusion of a scent trail to naturally attract bucks and does. in does. It fools mature bucks into thinking a submissive buck is following the trail of a hot doe. This unique combination of scents instinctively triggers an aggressive urge from bucks to immediately seek out what they think is a submissive and competitive buck closing in on their doe. This competition factor is what generates response when other sexual scents won't. To lay down a mock young buck and doe and estrus urine trail, simply apply several drops of scent to a boot pad or cover track and walk to your hunting location. Remove the scent pad and hang it in a branch 10 to 30 yards from where you will post. As the odor of low push number 9 spreads, the deer will approach the area with their guard down. Often bucks are reluctant to leave the area until they have checked out the source of the scent. Most other sexual scents, doe and estrus, can be used similarly. Although I have had unusual success with low push number 9, there are other manufacturers who make reliable estrus scents. Unfortunately, to find a company that makes quality scents, it's all trial and error. As with all other sexual scents, don't use a lot. Instead, opt for using less and you'll benefit more. Food scents. One of my favorite types of lures is to use are food scents. Food scents with an open mind. I have heard some so-called experts recommend you can't use food scents that are not native in the area you're hunting. If there is one point of deer hunting hype that annoys me, this is it. It is a pet peeve when it comes to deer hunting. There are those who say you can't use apple scent in a hardwood forest because deer will know that apples are not growing there. They are wrong, at least, and are bullcrap artists at worst. Trust me, when used correctly, food-type lures are highly effective, whether they're native to the area you're hunting or not. And you can take that fact to the deer hunting bank. If you don't believe apple scent or any other type of food lure, for that matter, attracts deer where wild apples don't grow, you're missing out on a productive hunting strategy. Try this. Before hunting season, take either a couple of real apples or a scent pad soaked in commercially made apple scent. Food scents are the only scent you don't have to worry about using too much. Place the lure or fruit in an area you're absolutely sure no wild apples. And as the deer move through the area, they will smell the food source and investigate it, whether it is natural to the area or not. I promise. Common sense would tell you deer instinctively check out odors from potential food sources. If they didn't, they would have a lot less food available to them. Deer have no way of figuring out if a scent pad laden with apple scent is a lure left by a hunter and not an actual food item. There isn't a buck alive that would make his way through a hardwood forest free of natural wild apples and pick up the odor of the apple lure and say, "Aha, there are no apples here. That's it from a fake apple lure. I've been had," and then run off. Apple scent not only acts as a food attracting scent, but is also excellent as cover scent to help mask your human odor. I often place several drops on my cap to help keep my human odor down. You can use acorn in the same way and use it in areas where there are no natural acorns, like when I'm hunting in evergreen forests. Guess what? Many deer have walked through the pines, wind, and acorn scent pad and walk over to check it out. This is additional evidence that you don't have to use food scents indigenous to the area you're hunting. Quite the contrary. It's a simple matter of common sense. If you put out apple scent in an apple orchard or acorn scent in a hardwood forest filled with acorns or corn scent in the middle of a cornfield, the only thing that you'd accomplish is to help mask your human odor. The natural food will attract the deer long before the imitation food scent will. My advice is to use natural food scents in areas where they are not naturally present, which would make sense so they don't get drowned out. Natural woodland fragrances like hemlock, pine, spruce, cedar, earth, and the like can be worn on clothing without risk of attracting a deer's attention to the hunter. I treat food scents like acorn, apple, corn, wild grape, and vanilla exactly the way I treat attracting lures. I hang them 10 to 20 yards from my stand, all except apple scent. While I hang apple scent away from me, I also use it on my cap to reduce human odor, as mentioned above. Remember, there is no way to totally eliminate your human odor. You can reduce it significantly, however, by following some important guidelines. Keep yourself as clean as possible before each hunt. If you can shower between hunts, do so. Use unscented deodorants. During deer season, always use non-scented sportsman soaps to clean your body, hair, and clothing. Scrub the soles of your boots, which you should never wear anywhere else but in the woods, every couple of days with a fingernail brush and unscented sportsman soap. In addition, wash your hunting clothes at least every other day. If you can, dry them outdoors. If not, hang them outdoors for a few minutes to remove the odor from the dryer before putting them on. Don't fill your car's gas tank while wearing hunting clothes. Avoid camp odors like cigarette smoke and cooking odors as if they were the plague. Also, never get dressed and then take your morning constitutional. Instead, wait until after you've relieved yourself to put on your hunting clothes. This next suggestion may be a bit tacky, but my obligation is to pass this information to you. A savvy deer hunter always washes himself thoroughly after making number 2. Deer pick up scents mostly from the foreign odors collected on the soles of your boots. Avoid wearing your hunting boots anywhere else other than the woods. If you're driving to a hunting area, leave your boots in a small cardboard box filled with pine branches, leaves, and earth. When you arrive at your hunting location, remove your sneakers or shoes, put on your boots, and head into the woods. When you return, immediately remove your boots and put them back in the box. By following these suggestions, you will keep your boots totally free of any foreign odors. I still wash the soles of my boots every few days to remove any human odor that may have permeated into the sole. By taking these suggestions seriously, you will eliminate as much human odor as possible and gain back the edge you would have otherwise lost. Scientists and hunters have just begun to understand the entire scent phenomenon. New glandular information is consistently being researched. I believe over the next few years, hunters will become more educated about the physical and internal characteristics of their quarry, and in doing so, will enjoy the experience of hunting much more. Pheromones from external glands are natural, everyday, olfactory odors in the deer woods. Used properly, they will add to your total deer hunting experience. They will create deer hunting opportunities that you may never have had otherwise. In addition, you will have opportunities to witness the amusing and interesting reactions of raccoons, coyotes, foxes, bears, and elk have when they stop, smell, and react to scents laid out for deer. By using all the other suggestions within this chapter, you will not only gain an edge, but you also have an interesting and exciting season watching and learning how does and bucks respond positively to scents when used correctly. And that, my friend, was the smell of success in Whitetail Strategies. Oof. So being down here in Texas and hunting primarily out of, with rifle hunting primarily out of elevated deer blind, we don't typically go into that level of detail and controlling our scent. We do look at the wind direction. We do try to, do cursory things to not take too much scent out in the woods. But we have found through trial and error over the years that, I mean, depending on how the wind's blowing and what's going on, I mean, you can smoke a cigar in a blind and be okay. Depends on how high you are, how elevated and far away from the feeder you are and what direction the deer typically come. So, you got to take the suggestions that he gave in this chapter and apply them to your unique area, how you hunt, all the factors involved there and everything. But they're, more knowledge, it's more information and more knowledge in your arsenal to become a better deer hunter. So I hope you learned a lot from that. I know I did. So with that, I will leave y'all on this episode. Again, I mentioned we're rolling out some ideas on some of the gear that we're looking to produce. You can go on feedbandit.com right now and take a gander at some of the patterns we're looking to put on shirts for you guys. You can buy some, but if you're a regularly sized guy, kind of like I am, like Corn Bandit is, maybe overweight, I got that beer gut. Don't buy what's on the website just yet. But they're out there for your viewing pleasure to hopefully you get excited for the future when we really get these designs out there on some shirts for you. But if you're a super skinny guy, feel free. Go ahead and buy some. The quality is good, and they're just made they're made thin fitting, for super skinny folk. So that's what's out there. Any of the hats you can buy now, they're great quality. you can go and buy those to your heart's content. But yeah, take a look at them. Let us know what you think. howdy@feedbandit.com. Any feedback is good feedback. If you got any podcast suggestions, send them to us. Any great deer stories from this hunting season, please email them to us as well. howdy@feedbandit.com. Would love to hear them. All right. Well, thanks again for listening. And remember, support your local feed store.
Well, I hope the bandits gave you an interesting episode that either entertained or educated you. Or better yet, both. Hell, I told them this podcasting thing looks harder to do than defeating Santa Anna. So if you would, please help them out by sharing it with all your like-minded friends to help the bandits get the word out. And don't forget to check us out at feedbandit.com and grab some gear and apparel to support the cause of Texas. Remember, Texas, above all else, preserve the tradition, protect the legacy. Finally, as I said some time ago on the eve of the great battle, and I vigorously repeat here again, be men, be free men, that your children may bless their father's name. Well, fellow bandit, until next time.